Hey guys, Megan Fox here. I am going to read to you today. I found another article. It's actually a little, it's kind of older, but it's hilarious and I appreciated it and I thought you might too. And it's all about Carrie Bradshaw and how she's just the worst. And since we're all enjoying ripping on Carrie Bradshaw lately, um, let's do this. This was in Grazia in 2021. 9 times Carrie Bradshaw was the actual worst. This is by Jess Commons and Guy Pusey. We love Sex in the City. We love Carrie Bradshaw. She is one of the most entertaining and interesting heroines in the history of television. But that doesn't mean that we are blind to the fact that the style icon, shoe goddess, and queen of curls wasn't capable of being an absolutely awful person. At the time, we tried to forgive her, but we changed our minds in 2018 when Sarah Jessica Parker herself admitted that even she struggled to get on board. In truth, it took real work every day to be her, to understand her, to not judge her, she told the Wall Street Journal. And now, of course, she's returning to our screens via a reboot, and just like that, we're hoping she will have grown up a little. Spoiler, she didn't. With every rewatch, it becomes more and more evident that Carrie was capable of cruelty and ignorance, so we're nailing our colors to the mast with our favorite examples of how she was the absolute worst. And are your key incidences included? 1. She was a bad friend. This could be an article itself, but we'll keep it brief. There was the time Carrie sent Aiden to go and help naked Miranda up when she slipped a disc in her back. Remember the bullshit bagels? Then there was the time Miranda got pregnant, wanted to get an abortion, and Carrie spent 3 days wandering around the city, musing over what would have happened if she herself hadn't gotten an abortion, all while Charlotte despaired over her own fertility issues. Way to make it all about you. Or, and this was the best, when Miranda was suffering from borderline postnatal depression, doubting herself as a new mother, and Carrie spent half an hour chewing her ear off about one of Aiden's ex-girlfriends who gave her a look in the toilets. Perspective, mate, it's a wonderful thing. In the first film, Miranda's separation from her husband and father of her child was bequeathed 1 2-minute conversation over breakfast out of the whole sorry 2-hour and 31-minute film. Carrie's jilted wedding with a guy she'd been umming and eyeing over for 10 years warranted a pricey trip to Mexico for her fully employed friends, 4 days in bed with the blinds closed, and an ill-advised hair color change. That was terrible. 2. Her puns were relentless. If you're tired, you don't move to Napa, you take a Napa. And so was ruined in future holidays we may have wanted to take to the Northern Californian wine-producing region. Carrie's laborious puns were a hallmark of the quartet's regular brunches and were always a lowlight. Thanks, mate. Thanks a bunch. Carrie Bradshaw was not a girl, no matter how many times she said it out loud. She was a grown-up lady with a real-ish job and responsibilities. But rather than be a grown-up like her friends, she instead invested her seemingly endless money. I wish it was the 90s. Journalists today write triple what Carrie wrote in a week and a day and get paid a fraction of the cost. It's true. This is so true. When I read what Candace Bushnell was making back then, $2.50, like $2.50 a word. Oh my God. That is so insane. That is not what people make anymore. It is like, it's just insane. Writers, this is absolutely correct. 10 times, we write 10 times what she does in one day that she writes in a week, and we make like less than half that. Good God, moving on. In Pissing Shoes, $40,000 worth to be precise, which hardly gave her the right to throw a shit fit when her best mate wouldn't lend her the deposit for a flipping flat. Remember when her friend Susan bought her a gorgeous cashmere birthday present in season 2, and Carrie asked her if it was okay if she returned it and kept the cash? So rude. Number 4, I'm a writer. Yes, Carrie's job was to write words, but there was something about her insistence on being a writer that rubbed us up the wrong way. She was a journalist, a columnist, and yes, she wrote books. But within the universe of the pre-film TV show, this was one tome, a collection of her columns. Describing herself as a writer suggested that she thought she was up there with Hemingway, which, to be fair, she probably thought was true. It's funny. Number 5, she was a bad, bad girlfriend. Aiden was a catch. That man was one green juice away from being the living, breathing human equivalent of a detox yoga holiday at a spa in India. That's so funny. Hey, if you don't love someone, you don't love someone. But there's probably a better way to break up than hanging a curtain in your flat to separate you, refuse to wear his engagement ring, make fun of the house he built with his own actual hands, cheat on him, coerce him back into the relationship, and then break up with him. Just saying. That said, we're glad she ended up with Big. He's awful too, and they deserve each other. I've said that so many times. It's so true. 6, she had zero boundaries. Picture this, if you will. You marry a guy who's handsome, rich, dreamy, and the love of your life. Then you catch him cheating on you, fall down, and damage your tooth irreparably. After the divorce is finalized, when you finally get up the gumption to get back out there on the dating scene, who should show up on your date? Oh, right. The woman that shagged your husband, wearing a newspaper print dress that looks like she purchased it from the sale rack of Jane Norman. Oh, and she's drinking your drink. Nice one, mate. Nice one. 7, for a sex columnist, she was oddly set in her ways. Carrie's handling of Samantha's relationship with a woman was ignorant and judgmental. When she herself dated a bisexual, she couldn't handle it. Yes, it was a different time, but Carrie was a sex columnist. Her prudish ways were inexcusable. She treated Samantha's promiscuity as a subject of ridicule or shame, even though her friends' stories essentially paid her wages. Talk about biting the hand that feeds you. There's truth in that. Like, she was super judgy, and yet she was writing about these girls every week. Number 8, she fat shamed. Remember when Samantha put on truly a tiny bit of weight in the first Sex and the City film? Carrie greeted her at the door, noticed an extra inch around her dear friend's stomach, and physically recoiled before staging an intervention. Bad form, Carrie. There are more, trust us. Time for another rewatch. Number 9, she was all about false equivalence. Carrie was so blind to the fact that her problems weren't significant in the grand scheme of things that she tended to compare her issues with much bigger ones. Case in point, when she said that one of her predicaments reminded her of the Troubles in Ireland. You don't need to be a history buff to know that that didn't go down very well. Oh, it's really funny. It's really good. I could think of a few more. I mean, the character of Carrie Bradshaw was just awful. And I know that Mike Harlow and I talked about this for a bit during one of our live streams. And I said I thought that the reason why it was like that was because, and we didn't notice, was because we were in our 20s too when we were watching it. At least I was. And when you're in your 20s, you're like, you're a selfish jerk. And so watching her be a selfish jerk was just like, oh, that's normal. But no, now that we've all grown up, it's like, wait a minute. She was always awful, just awful. So anyway, that's that. And I hope you got some chores done during this, because this was a little bit of a longer one. You should have at least been able to vacuum 2 rooms in that amount of time, maybe even the whole, like one whole level. Anyway, I hope you guys have a great day. Let me know in the comments below what you think about Carrie Bradshaw. Is she a good friend? Are there any in here that this guy missed? Examples of why she's the absolute worst? I'm sure there are. There are so many. For one, how about in And Just Like That, when she said her worst breakup story was her husband dying? That's not a breakup. No, absolutely not. All right, guys.